Picture this. You get to the end of the month, you check your bank account, and you realize that 101% of your take-home pay is just gone, completely swallowed up by debt. Literally nothing left for groceries, zero for savings. You are officially bleeding money. Now, you might think this is only happening to minimum wage workers, but according to recent DebtBusters data, no way. This is the shocking new reality for high-income earners in South Africa taking home over 50,000 rand a month. And honestly, it is a massive flashing warning sign for the rest of the world.
Welcome to This Explainer. I am so glad you're here today because we are diving into some of the most intense financial headwinds we've seen in a long time. We're looking at the full picture of financial resilience. We're talking everything from global inflation squeezing your wallet to hidden taxes secretly threatening your retirement in the US, all the way to the deeply personal realities of aging solo. Heavy stuff, right? But our goal here is super simple. We want to move you out of that state of financial anxiety and get you into a state of proactive, rock-solid control.
So, here's our roadmap. We're going to hit the global debt trap, unpack capital gains and hidden taxes, explore the rise of solo agers, and then wrap up with planning your financial future.
All right, part one, the global debt trap. Let's get right into these economic pressures.
Okay, take a look at this timeline. It's wild how a conflict thousands of miles away can hit your bank account directly. Back in 2023, we saw ongoing conflicts in the Middle East causing disruptions around a major oil shipping route. That sparked a global oil shock. Fast forward to the first quarter of 2026, and those higher fuel prices, they are aggressively feeding into local supply chains. And it's not just the gas pump. It costs more to move literally every single good and service across the globe. Because of that, by April 2026, consumer inflation jumps up to 4%. So what happens next? On May 29th, the South African Reserve Bank steps in and hikes the benchmark interest rate up to 7%. That's the first hike since 2023. Central banks everywhere are basically having to punish over-leveraged consumers just to cool down inflation. So if you've got a bond, car finance, or an overdraft, yeah, your life just got noticeably more expensive.
So, how do we fight back and stop the bleeding? First off, you've absolutely got to halt lifestyle creep. Completely. This is not the year to upgrade your car or stretch for a bigger house. Just stay perfectly still. Second, if you're caught in that 101% trap we talked about, you've got to make the hard choice to actually downgrade some of those high-ticket items. And third, attack that high-interest unsecured debt first. I'm talking about microloans and credit cards where interest rates are hanging around 17.9% or even worse. You need to pull the handbrake right now. Rank your debt by the interest rate and aggressively knock out the most toxic liabilities before they completely wipe out your balance sheet.
Moving on to part two, capital gains and hidden taxes. Time to uncover some invisible wealth killers.
Now shifting gears from global debt to the US tax system. If you want to protect your wealth, you really need to understand the fundamental difference between ordinary income and capital gains. Ordinary income is your usual stuff: wages, pensions, traditional IRA payouts, and Social Security. Capital gains, though, are the profits you make when you sell an asset, like stocks or real estate that you've held for over a year. But here's the massive trap that catches so many retirees off guard. Capital gains don't exist in a vacuum. Your ordinary income fills up your lowest tax brackets first. It stacks. So imagine you sell a huge chunk of stock in the exact same year you start pulling Social Security and required minimum distributions. You are literally stacking those capital gains right on top of your ordinary income, which pushes those gains into much, much higher tax brackets.
Take a look at these 2026 tax brackets. Do you see that 0% bracket? That means you pay absolutely zero federal capital gains tax if your total taxable income is under $49,450 for a single filer or under $98,900 if you're filing jointly. That's huge. But if you don't plan ahead and you just decide to rip off the Band-Aid by selling a massive chunk of assets all in 1 year, you will blow right past that 0% threshold. You'll jump straight into the 15% or maybe even the 20% bracket. Spreading those sales out over a few years just to maximize that 0% zone, that strategy alone can save you tens of thousands of dollars.
But wait, jumping brackets isn't even your only headache here. Enter the hidden wealth killers. Because hey, who doesn't love a surprise tax bill? If you trigger a massive capital gain, you might suddenly get hit with something called IRMAA, the Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. This is a nasty little surcharge that significantly hikes up your Medicare Part B and D premiums. And the real kicker, it's based on your income from 2 years prior. Oh, and on top of that, if your modified adjusted gross income crosses a certain line, you get slapped with the net investment income tax. That's an extra 3.8% right on your capital gains. These are totally silent traps, just waiting for folks who sell without a plan.
Navigating this kind of tax minefield is exactly why getting professional help is so absolutely crucial. But listen carefully. Not all financial advice is created equal. A standard financial advisor often operates under what's called a suitability standard. That basically means they can recommend an investment that costs you more just because it pays them a higher hidden commission, as long as it's loosely deemed suitable for you. What you actually want is a fee-only fiduciary. These professionals are legally bound to put your interests first. They are compensated exclusively by transparent fees that you pay them up front. It's without a doubt the gold standard for getting clean, objective advice on these complicated tax strategies.
All right, part 3, the rise of solo agers. Let's talk about navigating autonomy.
So, according to a massive new study by Ameriprise Financial combined with AARP census data, roughly 10% of Americans age 50 and older are managing their lives in their finances completely alone. That is over 12.5 million people who don't have a spouse or children to lean on. Whether it's by choice, rising divorce rates, or just life circumstances, this demographic is huge and it's growing fast. Now, they get to enjoy an incredible amount of autonomy, but on the flip side, they carry the absolute full weight of every single financial and health decision.
But solo aging isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. The research actually breaks this down into 3 distinct groups. First up, you've got the single, never-married group, making up about 52%. They are generally the most optimistic. They're super proud of their self-reliance and tend to spend more on lifestyle experiences. Next is the divorced or separated group at 34%. They're often balancing the pride of rebuilding their own lives while still managing some extended family duties. And finally, the widowed group at 15%. They usually feel the heaviest emotional impact from managing finances alone, and because of that, they're the most likely to actively seek out trusted professional guidance.
To really put a human face to this data, let's look at Amy Kant. She's a 65-year-old artist and a solo ager. She spent her younger years traveling, building an amazing career, and just totally relishing her independence. But recently, after having back surgery and a heart valve replacement, her home kind of temporarily became a recovery ward. And sure, her friends stopped by to help, but she quickly realized, they have their own households to run. If she decides she needs a smaller house without stairs, she loses her 3.75% mortgage rate. If she needs long-term care, she has to be the one to orchestrate it all. As she put it so perfectly, it all falls on me.
Which brings us to part 4, planning your financial future. Let's look at the actual steps we need to take.
Look, the absolute most crucial step you can take right now is preparedness. It's crazy, but even though 85% of solo adults say they are worried about aging alone, fearing things like running out of savings or not being able to afford care, their legal defenses are surprisingly weak. Less than 40% even have a formal will. Less than half have an updated healthcare directive to handle medical choices if they get incapacitated. And less than half have a financial power of attorney. Guys, this is a glaring vulnerability. If you don't have these documents in place, the state is going to decide what happens to you and your assets.
But there's a really stark warning that comes with setting this up. You have to choose your power of attorney very, very carefully. You might think, oh, I'll just give control to a distant nephew or my best friend. But money changes people. Sometimes that best friend suddenly decides they really deserve a new boat using your funds. Elder law attorneys see cases all the time where supposedly trusted friends or relatives drain bank accounts or just quitclaim houses to themselves. To truly protect yourself, it's highly recommended to appoint a neutral advocate, like an attorney or a bank trust department. They act purely as professionals, which keeps your hard-earned assets safe from exploitation.
Well, we have covered a whole lot of ground today, from the tightening grip of global interest rates and those silent, sneaky capital gains taxes, all the way to the very personal responsibility of architecting a solo future. All of this really leads to one final, absolutely critical question that you need to ask yourself today. Are your financial defenses built to withstand both the shocks of the global economy and the realities of aging solo? Seriously, don't wait for a crisis to hit before you find out. Take action on your debt, review your tax exposure, and lock in that estate planning. I really hope this explainer has given you the clarity you need to take control. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and keep learning.